Week 1 of the NFL season is here, and we've already had 2 games this week already. But we have 13 more on Sunday and another Monday Night Football game between the Jets and the 49ers coming up as well. I'm going to focus on Sunday's games here in this video and create 2 different parlays coming from 7 different games, picking a variety of props, alternate spreads, totals, scoring props, things like that. Now, I get that this might not work for everybody. If you're looking for a huge lottery ticket or you just want some single game straight up ATS picks, might not be the way that you like to bet, but it's like the way that I like to attack betting on the NFL and actually many other sports as well. One of the things that I think the joy of the NFL is that there's so many different ways to bet. There's lots of different markets out there to choose from, and I truly do believe that in most of these games, when you see a game being decided and the spread being decided in the final 5 minutes of a game or the final drive of the game, as was the case on Thursday Night Football kickoff between the Ravens and the Chiefs, where that game came right down to a toenail on the line at the end of the game, you're not necessarily that much smarter or not necessarily that much maybe dumber if you pick some of these games right or wrong. A lot of these games are coin flips. So my whole goal here is try to get you to think of other ways to attack these games, as lots of different books have different types of props that you can bet on. Maybe it's parlays, props, teasers, same game parlays. There's lots of ways to attack NFL betting when you can try to adjust things in your favor. Some bets will still always lose. That's what betting is, but you'll almost always be in it with some of these parlays that I'm going to create and teasers that I'm going to create all throughout the season long, where you're just asking both teams to maybe score a certain amount of points, certain amount of touchdowns, field goals, or you're adjusting the props, the lines or the totals in your favor. So let's get into these NFL Week 1 predictions, picks, and parlays. And if you want a great bonus to use from one of the top sports books in the industry for NFL kickoff weekend, go to the comments section of this video, click on my link, signupexpert.com/shredthespread. You'll be taken to a list of all the available sports books in your area with a lot of great offers for new customers, lots of free bonus money available, sometimes even as much as $1,500 at certain books. So be sure to check that out. Let's get into these first parlay. We'll do 3 games, and it's one of the most obvious ones on the board here. We got the Patriots and the Bengals. Bengals, big favorites at home. They were only 9-8 last season, but they missed Joe Burrow for much of the season, so a 9-8 record really isn't that bad. He's back for Week 1 here, but then Jamar Chase could miss out with unresolved contract issues. The Patriots were 4-13 last year, and they were an abysmal watch all season long. Their defense kept them in some games despite playing almost 2 games more of snaps than the offense did, as they were just defending mostly every game. Now, Bill Belichick is gone. Say what you want about him, but he always had the defense overperforming. The offense last year was 28th in passing, 25th in rushing, 30th in yards, and tied for last in points scored per game at 13.9. Jacoby Brissett can't be any worse than the god-awful QBs that they had in the rotation last year, but he's unlikely to be that much better either. This team is expected to have the worst record come January, and if they somehow pull an upset away to Cincinnati right here in Week 1, I'll just have to deal with it. This looks like the free square on the bingo card or an obvious survivor pick. If it loses, we'll all be probably losers together. Leg 1, Bengals, money line. Commanders, Buccaneers. Sure, the Bucs won a weak NFC South and at only 9-8, but they weren't a bad team. And Baker Mayfield had a more than capable QB last season. When they lost, it wasn't by a ton of points. They had losses of 14-14, 3, 6, 2, 13, 7, 10, and 8. So it was rarely massive losses. There were some heavy defeats in there, but not many. And often some of those bigger losses that we just touched on came against some of the better teams. Washington, not one of the better teams. They were 4-13 last year. They bring in Dan Quinn, defensive-minded coach this season. They'll also be starting a rookie QB in Jaden Daniels from LSU, drafted 2nd overall. Obviously, big things are expected, but will it come in Week 1? Probably not. Rookie QBs in Week 1 are 7-1 straight up in the past 5 years. The Commanders' defense got shredded last season. They gave up the most yards passing, the 2nd most yards per pass attempt. Additionally, they gave up the most yards to wide receivers as well. Now, that can only improve considering how bad it was last year. But still, Mayfield, Evans, Godwin, Otten should all be salivating here to get some good points for them offensively. Washington allowed 13 quarterbacks to throw for 2 or more touchdowns last season. Mayfield himself threw for 2 or more touchdown passes in 12 of 19 games. The Bucs should win this game. They certainly shouldn't lose by a lot if there is some sort of upset. So certainly, I think the Bucs should win. But in these parlays, like I talked about, we're going to try to make these even easier. You could go Bucs plus 4.5, or I'm going to go Bucs plus 7.5, just in case we do see a big upset. Finally, we've got a Sunday nighter for the 3rd leg of this parlay. It's the Rams and the Lions. It's an NFC wildcard rematch between the 10-7 Rams, the 12-5 Lions. On January 14th, the Lions edged out the Rams 24-23 at home. The Lions had 3 touchdowns, the Rams 2. All of that before halftime in a high-scoring first half that saw Detroit leading 21-17. Rams had 3 field goals in that game. Detroit had 1. Stafford threw all over the lines for 367 yards and a touchdown to Nakua and Atwell. Goff had 277 in the air, 1 passing touchdown to Laporta. Montgomery and Gibbs each ran in a score on the ground. The Rams defense took a hit this offseason with Aaron Donald retiring, which only helps my bet on points being scored in this game and in this exciting Sunday Night Football matchup. The Rams are also dealing with some O-line injuries here in Week 1 with left tackle Alaric Jackson suspended. Goff is the most profitable QB in the last 20 years in Week 1, being 7-0 ATS in openers. Dan Campbell has been the most profitable coach in the last 5 years, ATS himself. Now this will obviously be everybody's favorite over-betting game, which obviously sometimes means the under could be the way to go opposite there. After all, the total in this game is 52.5, but there were only 47 points scored when they met last season earlier this year. And obviously coming out of the gates in Week 1, offenses could be a little bit slow to get acclimated to a new season. So I'm just going to bet both teams to score over 1.5 touchdowns. You can find this type of prop at different books. Specifically for me, I like to bet it over at Bet365. This means you don't have to worry about the over or the under. Just still cheer on some scoring, though, and hope both teams can get at least 2 touchdowns. So in this parlay, Rams, Lions, over 1.5 touchdowns each. Tampa Bay, plus 7.5, and Cincinnati to win, coming in at minus 132. Parlay number 2. It's one of the early games. I'm going to start with here. Cardinals and Bills. Arizona ended the season just 2-3. And those losses came by 16, 11, and 1 point. Expectations are higher this year in the desert, expecting both the offense and defense to improve, and a full season of Kyler Murray and the drafting of Marvin Harrison Jr. Josh Allen led all players in combined touchdowns last season with 44. He did lose, though, 2 of his top targets in wide receivers, Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, this offseason. Buffalo was 11-6 last season, but didn't have too many big wins down the stretch. In their final 11 games, those wins came by 5, 6, 26, that being against the lowly Jets, 3, 21, 2, 6, 7, and 14 points. The Cardinals are about a 6.5-point underdog in this game on the normal spread. Could they lose by a touchdown? Absolutely. Do I see them getting run off the field against a Bills team with fewer offensive weapons this season? I don't think so. The Bills suffered a big blow also on defense, with linebacker Matt Milano being sent to the IR with an injury. So I think there's a few different ways to attack this. Cardinals on the spread, Cardinals on the alternate spread. Maybe you could go Cardinals plus 10.5, Cardinals plus 14.5. Or this game could be a contender for a lot of points. Both teams to score 2 or more touchdowns. Or simply in this parlay, both teams to score 10 or more points. You can find that at a few different books, Bet365, DraftKings, specifically for me. Texans and Colts. Next game here, divisional matchup. In the 2 meetings last year, Indy won 31-20 in Houston. The Texans won 23-19 in Indianapolis. The year prior, the scores between them, 32-31 Houston, and a 20-20 tie. Divisional underdogs, Week 1 have a great record, and home divisional dogs in Week 1 are 26-15 ATS since 2005, making Indy maybe a good bet in this game, and they get Anthony Richardson back from injury this season at quarterback. Houston looks, though, like everybody's darling team to make a run to the Super Bowl this year after the great season that C.J. Stroud had last year. Houston's offense ranked 13th in points per game, 22.7. Indy, even with Gardner Minshew playing in place of the injured Richardson, actually had the Colts ranking just ahead of them, 11th, averaging 23.3 points per game. Indy's defense got gashed, though, giving the 5th most points per game at 24.4. That made Indy one of the highest over teams at 11-6. Over or under, I can see 2 touchdowns in this game from both teams, so we'll go both teams to score over 1.5 touchdowns. Next, it's the Steelers and the Falcons. The Steelers were 11-7 at the under last season. The Falcons 10-7. The total is set at a relatively low 42. Both teams, though, welcomed new starting quarterbacks to the mix with Russell Wilson for Pittsburgh, Kirk Cousins for Atlanta. Wilson, though, already dealing with a calf injury. Wilson's best days definitely behind him. Cousins is coming off a severe Achilles injury. Both, though, are still upgrades over what the teams trotted out under center last year. And likely both teams, though, will need some time to integrate these new quarterbacks into their system. I'm going to tease this total up and go under. Only one Steelers game went over 50 points last year, while only 5 got that high for the Falcons. If you're looking for an ATS pick, you'd have to consider that Mike Tomlin is the most profitable coach as an underdog in the past 20 years. There's too much new here for me, though, to worry about that, a winner or a loser. I'm just going to tease the total up and go under 52.5. And then finally, Cowboys-Browns, 4th leg of this parlay. Dallas was the league's top offense last season, scoring 30.1 points per game. Cleveland came in at just 12th, scoring 22.8. Defensively, Dallas held the edge allowing 20.2 points per game, that being 9th. Cleveland, 22.6 points per game. That's down in 21st. The Browns, though, will be expected to have one of the top defenses this season. The fewest points Dallas scored all last season was 10, and it only happened twice, going well over that in most of their games. The Browns only failed to put up 10 points on the board once themselves last year as well. At minus 500, obviously you can't bet that by itself, but in this parlay, both teams to score 10 or more points. Looks like a good bet for me. So we'll go Cardinals, Bills, both to score 10 or more. Houston, Indy, both to score 2 or more touchdowns. Pittsburgh, Atlanta, the under 52.5 on the alternate total. Dallas, Cleveland, both teams to score 10 or more points, coming in at plus 122 odds. Like I said, I get these are some different types of props bets to attack here. But there's lots of ways to bet the NFL, and this is the way that I like to go about it, trying to skew some of these bets in our favor. But let me know how you're betting the NFL in week 1. No matter what you're betting, straight bets, ATS bets, totals, parlays, player props, drop those bets down there in the comments. Give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you want more football picks, soccer picks, and more. And best of luck this weekend.